Hello, everyone. My name is Barron J. Damon, and I am the host of the Live Your Legacy podcast, where mission and purpose intersect. On this show, we love to talk about purpose and mission. And today we have someone who's been on a mission for a long time, and that mission has been about educating the world about the go-giver. We have one of my favorite people, Bob Berg, today with us. Hello, Bob.
Hi, Barron. Great to be with you.
Well, I'm glad to have you. People say, never meet your hero because you might be disappointed. Well, I wasn't disappointed. We met 6 months ago at a mastermind, and it was life-changing for me. And since then, I've been thinking about how can I get Bob to be on my podcast. And so,
Wow.
Bob, we're so excited to have you here with us. So thank you so much for being here.
Well, that's a very nice compliment. And coming from you, one of my heroes, it means a lot to me. Thank you.
Well, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So tell us a little bit about, the book, The Go-Giver, is actually one of my favorite books, and I've recommended it to so many people over the years. I'll tell a cool story that you've heard me tell before. We were headed to the mastermind, and I was in an Uber, and I was bringing my book for you to sign it. And this young lady, she was talking about business, our Uber driver, and I can tell that she was kind of struggling and needed some direction. And I looked at my wife and I said, I have my book, but I want this Bob to sign this book, but I need to give it to her. And my wife said, give it to her, give it to her. I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it to her. So I give her the book and she's like, wow, this is awesome. She was so excited about it. And then I came and I didn't have a book, but you so graciously gave me another book and you signed it. So I really appreciate that. And that's a part of what Go Giver really is all about. Is that right, Bob?
Well, sure. And your Aunt Katrina's giving spirit in taking your book and giving it to that person, which I hope she enjoyed it. But just the fact that the two of you gave her something like that, knowing that it was something she might be able to use, I'm sure made a big difference to her. And what it did, whether she ever read the book or not, it encouraged her. And it said to her, here are these two people who just, even though we just met and I'm their Uber driver, have enough belief in me that they would give me something of theirs.
Yeah.
And, Zig Ziglar used to say that one of the things most lacking in this world is encouragement.
Yeah.
Encouragement. And what you did is you encouraged her just through that act. So I thank you for that.
So Bob, I love this word. You said belief. Tell me who had that belief in you as a young person. Tell us a little bit about your career, how you got started.
Well, I was very, very fortunate to be raised by two wonderful people. My mom and dad were, just wonderful, and they believed in me, right?
Yeah.
And and they surely saw me at my worst, right? and still believed in me. So that was, that's something that's a real privilege to have that in one's life.
Yeah.
And as I got older, they were just people who I met along the way. And, some had that belief and some discouraged and some didn't. And some did, you try to look for those people who you feel are going to add value to your life as you add value to others. And that's why I think it's so very important to surround ourselves with good, encouraging people who do believe in us, which doesn't mean they don't call us out, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they don't tell us the truth when we need to hear truth that isn't necessarily what we would like to hear, but they care enough about us and they believe enough in us that they will tactfully and constructively share with us where we may be off track too. So that's also part of it. But you can tell, I think when someone really has your well-being at heart, and those people are just treasures in one's life.
Absolutely. This book, The Salesperson Joe, were you that salesperson? Is this book based loosely on your life at all?
Well, I like to say the character of Joe that John David Mann and I came up with was sort of the every person, right? Everyone's been Joe or Josephine at one time or another, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Where
for
we
sure.
had the potential was there and the
Yeah.
you know the but maybe our focus wasn't in the right place and
Mhm.
where and um and then there are other characters that are people maybe we grow into, you know.
Mhm.
And but so Joe wasn't necessarily me, but I've certainly been Joe.
Right.
You know,
Right. Right.
absolutely.
Right. We've definitely all been Joe and Josephine, right?
Right, exactly.
At some point. So where did your career start? How did you start writing? What was your very first job that you had?
Yeah, so I began as a broadcaster. Actually, I was a sportscaster on radio, and then I was the late night news guy for a very very small ABC affiliate in the Midwestern United States. I really wasn't very good at it, and it wasn't long before I found myself in sales,
Mhm.
just to make a living.
Yeah.
And I knew nothing about sales, though. I had not had any formal sales training. And
Mhm.
so I floundered for the first few months until I was in a bookstore, and this is 40 years ago now. So you didn't necessarily know about all the great materials that were out
Right.
there because there weren't a whole lot of materials out there. It was, again, 40 years ago. But I stumbled across a couple of books on sales. One was by Tom Hopkins and one was by Zig Ziglar. And just seeing that there was some sort of methodology to sales, which again, I didn't know.
Right.
So it was encouraging to me. So I took those books home, and I like to say I never read them. I devoured them.
Mm.
And I would spend night after night into the wee hours of the morning reading, studying, drilling myself, making notes, highlighting, underlining, dog-earing pages, and really within a few weeks, my sales began to really go great. And
Really?
what was fascinating to me was, I mean, there still at this point was not a whole big difference in me as a person that there were 3 weeks ago, but I now had a methodology. I
Mm.
now had a system I could follow.
Yeah.
And, I personally define a system as the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles, the key being predictability. If it's been
Mm.
proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired results of B, then all you need to do is A and continue to do A, and you'll get the desired results of B. And so, this again, it was very encouraging to me. So I started, studying more, and I started buying cassette tape albums, right? Back then,
Yeah.
that's how old I am, right? It
Yeah.
was cassette tapes, going to seminars. But here's the big thing, Barron. I started getting all these personal development books. So
Mm.
books like How to Win Friends and Influence People, The Magic of Thinking Big, Think and Grow Rich, Psycho-Cybernetics, The Richest Man in Babylon, all these books that were building me on the inside. I came to realize that success is really an inside job. It manifests itself outwardly, but it
Yeah.
begins in here and here, the head and the heart.
Yeah.
And that's really where my fast. So I loved sales. I loved the personal development aspect of it, and that's kind of how things happen in that regard.
Success is an inside job.
Yeah, it's where
I
it
love that.
begins.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's where it begins. You have a lot of books behind you. Did you read all those?
yeah. I've read most of them, or use them as references and so forth. But yeah, my whole house. I always say my house is comprised of books with some
Mm.
scattered furniture.
Wow, that's awesome. And just being a lifelong learner. So you started having some success as a salesperson and um, you kept on in that career over a certain amount of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. So eventually I worked my way up to sales manager of another company
Okay.
and started getting asked to share what was working for me and for my sales team with others. And I enjoyed the idea of teaching that. I think by nature I'm kind of a teacher, half
Okay.
teacher and half entertainer, right? So that worked out.
Uh-huh. Right.
And then I'd gone to a seminar and bought the person's um tape package with a whole workbook to it and so forth. And in the back, there was this advertisement that if you wanted to make extra money by learning how to speak and sell these tapes, to
Mm.
call the office. And so I did. And I went down there and they interviewed me and they taught me how to give 25 or 30-minute, free talks. And at the end, sell the albums and so forth. And from what they said, I was their number one sales guy in the country. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I sold a lot for them. And
Yeah,
it kind of I liked doing that. So
yeah,
eventually I broke it on my own and started developing my own products and services and so forth and learning how to build a speaking business.
hmm
And from there it's been a fun career. I
yeah,
feel just very honored to have gotten to do this.
yeah. One of the laws of stratospheric success is the law of authenticity. Were you authentic then during that time, during your sales time, or that became later on for you?
No, I mean I would like to think I've always been authentic, but
Okay.
I think I have developed
Mm.
myself into a higher authentic version. Let's put it that
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
You and I have spoken before about authenticity, uh, really meaning acting congruently with one's values.
yeah.
And part of that is understanding what your values really are and consciously choosing, those values.
Yeah.
And I gave the example of the person who uses the term authenticity to not grow. The person who says, well, I have anger issues and I yell at people a lot, and if I
Yeah.
were to act any differently, that wouldn't be authentic of me.
Yeah.
And how wrong that is. It
Yeah.
simply means that person has an authentic problem
Yeah.
that they need to authentically work on in order to become a better, higher, more effective, authentic version of themselves. So rather than using the term authenticity as an excuse to not grow, instead see authenticity, the concept of authenticity, as a motivator to grow into your highest authentic self. And we can do
Yeah.
that because we can learn from so many people.
Right.
And
Right.
and yeah, and so that's so I'd like to think that I've grown myself as a person over the
Yeah.
years. And as such, has have tapped into that authentic nature
Yeah.
even more.
Yeah. I love to say there's levels to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you said you were a sports broadcaster. What sports did you broadcast and what kind of sports do you like?
Oh, I was just the sports guy, the sports reporter for the
Oh, okay. Sports reporter. Okay.
yeah. So
Okay.
I covered events, but and then I'd bring it back, and I'd um, read the sports during the news section
Okay.
of the broadcast.
So you what when we spoke before, you said you love boxing. It was one of the sports that you
Yeah,
enjoy?
yeah, really. I don't follow it now like I used to, but
Yeah.
yeah, always enjoyed that. Baseball certainly was a great
Yeah.
sport. Football, growing up in the Boston area, they were always the big four. It was
Yeah.
baseball, football, basketball, and hockey.
Yeah.
Over the years, I'd say that, and I've been in Florida now for 35 years or whatever, so I follow the Miami teams. But my interest in hockey and basketball sort of waned.
Hmm.
I don't follow those anymore at all, but I still really enjoy watching football and baseball. Though don't even ask me about my Miami Marlins this year.
Yeah. I love sports too, and sports is one of those kind of great connectors between people. So I think that's probably what I enjoy about it the most. So Bob, did you see yourself as a writer kind of early on as you were going through your process? You had some success in sales and then you started speaking. Was being a writer kind of the next step in that process for you?
Well, the first book I wrote, Endless Referrals, I really didn't even want to write it. I had had an audio program called How to Cultivate a Network of Endless Referrals that I was selling from stage along with my talks, and I was kind of happy doing that. But I went to a National Speakers Association meeting. I'd been now speaking for about 3 years or so, and a couple of the more veteran speakers said to me, Berg, you're at the point now where you should really write a book. And I said, well, I don't really want to. got this thing
Yeah.
going. It's going to, you know, and they said, well, you know, if you write a book, you're going to be able to position yourself a lot better. You're going to be able to get more engagements. You're going to be able, you're going to make more money per engagement. You know, and they gave me a list of benefits. Why, you know,
Hmm.
they didn't have to do. They were just sharing great information. And I try to be a good student. So,
Yeah.
that's why I wrote Endless Referrals. It was totally for utilitarian purposes of marketing myself and positioning myself better as a speaker. But I think every book I've written after that is because I felt I had a message I wanted to share,
Okay.
and I knew that putting it in book form was the best way to do it.
Yeah. How many books have you written?
I think it's something like 11 now or 12 or something like that. And, you know, not everyone's been a big seller. There's a few that tanked. And
Right.
there's others that I've been fortunate enough that have, you know, have sold very well.
What did you like about the writing process? Is something that you liked about the process?
I don't really like writing books. I like having written books, you know,
Okay.
so I would much rather the
The end
process.
product, right?
Yeah, I don't really, I can't say I enjoy the process. I'm much more of a speaker. I love speaking,
Okay.
not so much the writing.
Yeah. So this book, The Go Giver, has sold a lot of copies, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Is
it's
it
about a
over a
million.
million copies?
Yeah, something like it's around 1,250,000.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and
And
so much credit for that goes to John David Mann because again,
yeah,
he was the lead writer storyteller. I mean, just an amazing, you know, I'm a how-to writer. All
yeah,
my books are how-tos, but except for with John, and
yeah.
just wrote another one, another sales parable with my friend Jeff West. But other than those books, everything I've ever written by myself has been a how-to book.
Okay.
Which is basically pretty easy to do. You write what you know. It's how to. Writing a parable is a lot different. And
Yeah.
John is such a brilliant writer. He brought the characters to life and really made the story sing.
Yeah, I love that. I've heard some great things about John David Mann and some of these other writings that I've seen as well. So we may have him on the podcast as well to be
Sure, he'd
able to
love
talk
to.
about
Yeah.
some of that. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. So as you guys were forming this book, and it just didn't stop there. It became almost like a movement. It was that part of the strategy in getting the book out there.
Um, well, it was something that we were hoping would really take effect. We thought there'd be a marketplace for it. I don't know if a market for it. I don't know if we knew it was gonna be as big as it became. I'm not sure you can ever really predict that, but of course, you
Yeah.
know, you go into it with confidence, and you'd like to think everything you do is gonna hit big. But yeah, we saw after a while that it was gonna really it was taking off.
Yeah.
And of course, Kathy Tajanel, who you know, she did a wonderful job of helping to really position and market and brand that book. And so I think between the three of us in a way,
Yeah.
it became a movement.
Yeah, absolutely. And how did you supplement, meaning you have some other programs that you all have put around the book? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and there are four books on the series, actually five, because there were three.
Mhm.
There's the Go Giver, and then the second book, which is the only one not a parable, was Go Givers Sell More.
Okay.
Then there was the Go Giver Leader and the Go Giver Influencer, and then 2 years ago, John and his wife, Anna Gabriel Mann, they actually wrote a half parable, half how to called the Go Giver Marriage.
Hmm.
And yeah, and so there's actually, I guess you could say, five books in the series, four of which John and I wrote together. Um, but yeah, so Kathy and I really have developed an entire business around the Go Giver brand, where we have licensed, certified Go Giver speakers. We have um, the Go Giver Success Vault. And the Go Giver Beyond the Mastermind, and so forth. And so, yeah, we've kind of put together a lot around around the brand itself.
Yeah, and we're starting to work on a project together called the Go
Mhm.
Giver Project, where
Very
we're
exciting.
going to take it to the next generation and
Hmm.
sharing this wonderful, beautiful story to young people. And we're really excited about that as well.
Well, your mentorship and the mentors who you're going to have working with you, and I'm just so excited about it because
Yeah.
again, it's going to touch so many lives, and I just know that, and I know you well enough to know that, man, this is going to be something that's going to go big and just touch the lives of so many young men and women who are going to be able to not only have their lives moved in a very positive direction, but it's going to be generational, right? And it's
Yeah.
going to keep on going, and they're going to touch the lives of many people, and it will
Yeah.
become generational. And so I just very, very excited about this.
Yeah, I am too, because age should not be a barrier to someone becoming a go-giver, right? That's not something we have to wait till we get to a certain age before we can feel that way. So I'm excited about that. So Bob, let's reflect a little bit on your life journey. What drives your actions? Who benefits from them, and what outcomes are you striving for at this particular stage of your career?
Well, this particular stage, I'm 66, and so I'm not retired, but I'm also not getting on planes to speak anymore.
Yeah. Don't you
So
love Zoom?
Zoom is great. I love doing virtual keynotes.
Yeah.
And then we have our, along with two of my friends and associates, Jeff West and Kim Angeli, we have quarterly events and in-person events in West Palm Beach that we call the Sales Wise Live Sales Mastery events, and those were a lot of fun. And so I'm just looking basically to continue to spread the message through all the various media that we use
Yeah.
to do so. I do it really, because it brings me joy to feel that I'm bringing value to others. So
Yeah.
to me, it's very selfish, right? And
Yeah.
so it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the Sales Wise book, because I know that's another book you work with Jeff
Yeah,
West, and
yeah.
Jeff is an awesome
Oh,
guy that's been a part of, I
he's
met him
wonderful.
6 months ago and all of
Mhm.
that, and he made a very direct connection for me that turned out to be really good. The go-giver in him is very apparent as well.
Oh,
Tell us a little bit about the Sales Wise book.
yeah, and Jeff, not only was he a great salesperson in his day, but he was the sales manager,
Mm.
sales leader of a for a Fortune 500 insurance company, and he had a huge organization, and
Oh, wow.
he was fantastic. He was a client of mine. That's how I met him, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, and his people just loved him.
Yeah.
You could just
Oh,
tell
yeah.
there. I mean, he
Yeah.
created such a wonderful culture. So he and I co-authored a book, a sales parable called Streetwise to Saleswise, and the
Okay.
Streetwise part is, and then the subtitle is. Become objection proof and beat the sales blues. So there's a couple of double meanings. Streetwise is because, again, it's a parable. And so it kind of took place on the streets of New Orleans, which
Oh,
is one of
nice.
Jeff and Lori's, his wife's favorite cities. So
Okay.
and so it was about a young man who kind of came off the streets and became a salesperson and had to
Okay.
really learn some lessons from his sales manager. But it was also the other main character was a street busker, and so she was a musician who played on the streets, and she'd set up, and people would give money when she played. And it was kind of how the two of them ended up meeting, right? And how the
Yeah.
story twists. But it was really about how to become a leader, how to become a sales professional, how
Mm.
to work effectively within objections. And then when it was beat the sales blues, the blues being, also not only the uncomfortable part of sales, but the New
Yeah.
Orleans blues, part with music. And so there
Yeah.
was really it was a fun book to write. And
Yeah.
again, Jeff was the lead writer, again, just
Right.
like John,
Right.
and Jeff was the lead writer, and brought so much of his sales and leadership wisdom to it. And
Yeah.
it was a fun project.
I have the book. I am definitely going to read it. Does it have food? Because New Orleans has some good food. They talk
Oh
about
yeah.
food at
Oh, you
all.
know that he was, yeah,
Okay. Okay. That's great. Now,
food
Bob,
music.
this podcast is Live Your Legacy. So, what would you like for your legacy to be?
Well, To me, it's actually very simple because the legacy that I desire to leave is basically the legacy that I believe my dad left.
Mm,
And, the thing about my dad was he had a way of really making people feel genuinely good about themselves.
yeah,
And, I saw how he just touched people's lives in such a positive way. And that's something I've tried to emulate. So I guess if someone was to say, what's your thing, Bob? What is it that you really do? What's your legacy? I'd like to think I'm an encourager,
yeah,
and that people would say Bob Berg made people feel genuinely good about themselves.
yeah, yeah. That's a tremendous legacy to have because people, what's the saying said? People they want to know that you care
Oh
about them.
yeah, right. Well, yeah, Cavett
Yeah,
Robert actually, and I
yeah.
love that saying. He was the founder of the National Speakers Association. He worked very closely actually with Dale Carnegie. And
Okay.
what Cavett said is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you
How
care.
much you
And that
care.
saying is attributed to so many people, but it was actually
Yeah.
Cavett Robert who coined that phrase.
Yeah. And I will say this, Bob, when I came to the mastermind and you hugged everyone who came into that mastermind, and it was just a small, intimate group, but you can feel the hug, and that's something. And it wasn't just the first day, because something that might be easy for people, but it was the second day and the third day. And so, matter of fact, I think you got to a point where you were looking for the hug from Bob Berg at some point.
Well, I try to remember now to ask people, if they want a fist bump
Yeah,
or hello or a hug. I'm a hugger, and most
yeah,
people fortunately are. But I try to also respect that some people just
right.
just aren't. But yeah, I'll hug. I'm a hugger.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. But it's about making people feel special, making people welcome. And Bob, that is definitely going to be a part of your legacy. So thank
Thank you.
you so much for being on the show with us. Can you tell us how we can get in contact with you, the Streetwise, all that you all have going on? Tell us a little bit how we can get in contact with you.
Sure. The best way is just to go to burg.com. And while there, there should be a little pop-up for you to subscribe to my daily impact email, which I send out Mondays through Fridays. And there's all sorts of information on my books and all the other stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm on that email list and I read though. I don't read them every day, but I read them a lot and I just take just pieces of them with me on a daily basis. And
Uh,
so
Thank you.
I really appreciate that free resource that you provide to people if they want to
Thank
take
you.
advantage of that. So this is Barron, Damon, and Live Your Legacy. And our guest today, Bob Berg, is a person who is living his legacy right now. And we're so grateful to have him here. And I can't wait for you to hear this podcast. So stay tuned and we'll see you the next time.